So let's have a talk today, not about the Muslim question itself, but why this question even comes up in the first place. So, to those of you who might not know, basically this is what Tommy Robinson, Sargon of Akkad, has recently started doing videos on the Muslim question. And this is one of the things I find to be really, really troublesome and worrying. Because most of the people who are trying to do this and make videos about this on YouTube, first of all, have never, ever in their entire life ever talked to a single Muslim. You know, someone who actually practices the faith. So that's the first thing. The second thing is, these guys are not equipped in themselves to have this conversation. And what do I mean by that? Well, you've got to look at recently one of the videos. Sargon was interviewed by a channel called The Triggering. And one of the hosts asked Sargon this question: if you were in charge, what would you do about the immigration? What solutions would you provide? So Sargon basically doesn't answer that question. Instead, he goes on and talks about Muslim gangs. Now, here's the thing. If you want to have this talk about why Muslim gangs might be a problem, then you've got to have and be able to talk about the larger gang problem we face in the UK. And indeed, if you actually go and talk to many of these Muslim gangs, the reason why they are in a gang in the first place is because they have been targets by other white gangs or other gangs in that area that have targeted to them specifically because they are Asian and they happen to be Muslim. So they have done this themselves because they feel they need to be in a gang for protection. And if you want to go into this whole gang problem itself, it's really a vicious cycle. And the thing is, you need to throw money at it. And one of the actual solutions, how you solve this gang problem as a whole, would be if you gave councils the money to be able to provide young people opportunities to develop themselves and, you know, give them skills and activities outside of school and on a weekend, so that they don't have to go out and be part of these gangs, or they've got somewhere safe where they know they're not going to be, attacked and things like that. But oh, what's this? Tory austerity, all that money is now gone. So you have to be able to talk about that. And Sargon, in that answer he gave, showed he was not able to talk about the general whole problems that we are facing in that area. Because if you just want to talk about Muslim gangs, then you are talking, this is the gang problem. You're talking about this tiny proportion of gangs. You know, solving the Muslim gang problem does not solve the rest of the gang problem. In fact, if you try and focus that to solve this Muslim gang problem, it's not going to solve it. So this is what I talk about, and why I often say these people are not equipped to have this conversation, because they themselves are pushing an agenda. And again, Tommy Robinson pushes his own, anti-Muslim agenda because it's easy to get people to fall into this trap of being scared of Muslims. Now, myself, you're going to say, someone I know is going to say, oh, so are you equipped to have this conversation? No, I'm not equipped to have this conversation, because I have a very, very base level of the religion of Islam. I am not, any way, shape or form the stature of, a religious scholar. I got a B in RE in GCSEs, so again, that doesn't really qualify me to be able to have this conversation. But when you look at you know, just in terms of like, you know, interpretation of Islam, there's hundreds of thousands of different people you can go and talk to about their interpretation, why they think this means this. But the problem is people like Sargon, Tommy Robinson, are not prepared to go out and do the legwork. So they do the laziest of all possible things and find, you know, the really dubious passages. I mean, let's not pretend that there aren't, you know, dubious passages in the Quran, as there are in the Bible, as there are in the Sikh Bible as well. You know, there are a lot of holy books out there that have really dubious passages that in a modern society you should not, you know, probably follow today. But that's because when you look at Islam as this, you know, world-spanning religion, there are hundreds of thousands of different interpretations. So this idea of reading it and saying, oh, this means this, has Sargon ever gone out and sought someone who is a actual religious scholar on Islam? No, he will never do something like that because he doesn't want to. He's not interested in generally learning about the religion and why people might think this way in sort of like these particular terms of interpretation. So I've said my background is in marketing and PR and, you know, digital marketing and all those areas. So if I bring my expertise to this fight, then everything I've been saying for the last couple of videos about this has always been, look, these people on the right, and particularly the far right, are pushing this agenda where they want you to make you scared of Muslims. And I said in my, you know, the Meet Tommy Robinson supporters, where he was talking to that woman, and that's generally quite scary, that she basically has all these wrong views, can't name or isn't willing to name where she got her sources from, and basically when she's challenged by the guy who basically says, I can tell you that's categorically not true, she's just like, oh, you know, there are, unfortunately, these people who are pushing an agenda, in particular, because they want to spread this anti-Muslim bigotry, because it serves a purpose to them. It helps them get in power. This is a real cornerstone of a lot of these problems that we are facing and seeing develop in this country. Because if this predominant view starts to take hold, that Muslims are a problem, and that you know the religion is not compatible with British society, then what does that mean to the hundreds of thousands of, you know, millions of British-born Muslims who follow this religion, who are perfectly peaceful, don't interfere with anyone's lives or anything like that? What does that, you know, what do those actual policies then become? Do we see things like, you know, acts against Muslims? And this would cause a reaction. This only goes on to prove the radical Islamist right. They constantly talk about, you know, the West is out to destroy Islam. So I've said this before, that, you know, the far right and the far right radical Islamist extremists, they feed off each other. And way back in the 80s, I think it was, there was a neo-Nazi group who was found out to be funded by radical Islamic extremists, because they found that this neo-Nazi group saying these things could then be used in their own propaganda purposes for them to then go out and convince, you know, young, you know, impressionable men who, again, go look it up, a lot of these people who committed terrorist attacks recently in the UK had one uncomfortable very thing in common. Either them or a member of their family had been a victim of extreme racial abuse. And this is the type of stuff that Tommy Robinson supporters go on and do, which then encourages these guys to basically be turned into, you know, suicide bombers or things like that. But of course, they don't seem to understand this. And this is what I've been constantly warning about on this channel. And people just don't seem to either get it or understand it. And this is a problem because a lot of these people who are talking about the Muslim question are not equipped to have this conversation. So because of that, all they do is they go and do the most laziest form of research, and unfortunately it empowers a lot of really ignorant people on this topic to say the exact same things that the far right are saying, you know, about Muslims, and it's not true. It is a absolute distortion of the reality of the facts of what goes on, and that Islam itself is a really complicated religion with lots of different interpretations, and to say that one thing means this is exactly the same as if you went to a Christian and said your religion means this, because I guarantee if you went up and said that to a Christian, they wouldn't agree with you. They would give their own interpretation. You know, I went to a Catholic primary school. I went to a Catholic secondary school, so I know a lot about you know, Catholic education and, you know, that type of thing. Like I say, I had to do religious education as part of my GCSEs. Most you know, Catholic schools or Church of England schools actually do REs. But there you have it. So yeah, that's why I think most of these people aren't equipped, and unfortunately all they do is they parrot more and more right-wing talking points, and it's not true, and there needs to be a redress of a balance, and there are people who are talking about this, so they are out there who are doing this. I mean, if you want a perfect example of how ill-equipped Sargon is to actually talk about this, go and watch his talk he did with, not Sam Cedar, Mick Brooks on the Majority Report. And you can see he's not even equipped to have a talk about Sharia law, the realities that's going on in the Middle East. And I urge you now, another thing as well is Sam Harris. As an atheist, I used to really like Sam Harris, but the more videos I start to watch on, especially the Majority Report, and the way that, you know, you've got Sam Harris and Michael Brooks, they really do deconstruct Sam Harris, and they go, hey, look, this guy's not as smart as he's making out to be on this topic. And I've really started to agree with them on this. I think they are right, and that Sam Harris does present the most intellectually lazy way of examining, you know, Islam. And but, you know, that's the unfortunate position where we're in, because a lot of these people who are in this position to talk about Islam with some authority and some reasonable debate are not getting they're not getting challenged by these people on the right. So what I would love to see is someone who is actually a religious scholar go up to Sargon and actually challenge him to a formal debate about Islam. And I would love it if it could be someone from the UK to do it against Sargon, because I would think that would be a wonderful debate. Sargon would get destroyed. There's no question that he wouldn't get destroyed in it, because all he would be talking from is his, you know, very intellectual, lazy, right-wing talking points, and he wouldn't stand a chance. But then, there you go. That's certainly one thing I would certainly love to see. I don't know who you could get, who from the UK that would actually be willing to do that, but there you go.